Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
Hey, want to welcome everybody to You and the Law podcast show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in and joining another episode of the podcast show. Tonight we've got a topic that we're going to be talking about that is it's a serious topic that's going on in the world of policing. Uh, but I need to introduce the man of the hour who goes by the name of Chief Swaggy One.
What's going on, brother? How you doing, man? Hey, man. Man,
And I'm doing good.
I'm so proud of you, man.
Hey man, you want to let me and the listeners know why you feel so proud of me today?
Yeah, man, because I remember when you were just a little a little guy, leaning to me for advice on how to be better. And now you're just you've grown up to be an amazing young man.
Well, thank you for that, but I still do lean on Big Brother for that, wisdom and knowledge and advice.
Well, I appreciate it, and I do the same with you, man, because you're a sharp dude, man. Surprisingly, from Hobbs, you're smart, but that's
Hey man, you know what, man? People from Hobbs, New Mexico, everybody know all over the land about Hobbs, New Mexico. It is the capital of high school basketball.
what
It is the capital of high school basketball.
you have
And
lost your mind.
no, man,
You have
hopefully
lost your mind.
if I got some listeners on that are from Hobbs, New Mexico, they can get in the chat room and they can tell you about the winningest basketball coach in high school basketball was Coach Ralph Tasker that I
Absolutely,
had the
uh,
pleasure of playing under.
Coach Robert Hughes out of Fort Worth Dunbar.
Well, and you know what? Fort Worth Dunbar actually came to Hobbs and played in the Hobbs Holiday Basketball Tournament and got whipped, got beat.
Okay, what's the show topic today?
Hey, we were going to have on a guest that was with he's the president with an organization that you are a member of, the Black Police Officers Association. He can't join us tonight, so we're going to be talking, Keith, about something that you brought to my attention earlier today, an incident that took place in Dallas, Texas, that involves the Dallas Police Department. So tonight, uh, everyone, we're going to be talking about the state of America policing and social media.
Hey, Virgil. Before we get started, I think we really have to say happy birthday to Noble, National Organization of Black
National,
Law Enforcement Executives. Man,
yeah,
happy birthday to uh, to the uh, to the Noble organization. I will tell you that if it hadn't been for Noble and the National Black Police Association, uh, we probably wouldn't be where we are today.
exactly. Yeah,
Happy
and
birthday.
Keith, yeah, you're right, and hopefully, one of these days we can pull the arm of the executive director of Noble to come on our podcast show. So, you know people in important places, so I know you can make that happen. I can't make it happen, but I know you can.
Okay, Virgil, let's go ahead on with the show because there you go. There you go.
Hey, to the listeners, if you got any comments or things you want to talk to us about, please do so in the chat room. The chat room is open. Send your comments, and we will read those as throughout the podcast show. But Keith, before we go any further and to give some context to our topic tonight, I've got a video clip that I want to show you out of Dallas, Texas, related to what just happened within the last 48 hours.
Police Department suspended a white officer for designing a commemorative coin with a racist depiction on it. The officer posted it on social media for other officers. The coin depicted a doughboy with a gold grill, cash, and an assault rifle in his hand. The head of the Dallas Black Police Association called the coin racist. The chief called the coin wrong. Fox 4's David Satendri live in Dallas with the department's response. David?
Yeah, Blake, and the chief says what the officer did is not what the department stands for. The president of the Black Police Association of Greater Dallas believes the officer should not have a gun or a badge. Big T Plaza off I-35 and Ann Arbor in Oak Cliff is a shopping center that primarily serves black customers.
It's a very big deal to the African American community because it's the one place that provides a space for black and brown entrepreneurships to actually do business and make a profit. It was featured in the rendering of a so-called challenge coin that some police leaders, city leaders, and community members called racist. It doesn't do anything but set us back. Challenge coins are commemorative coins used by organizations to boost camaraderie. This coin rendering, designed by a white officer in the department's South Central Division, depicts a drug-dealing character named Doughboy with a gold grill holding an assault rifle and cash standing behind a drug house. It also shows a car with giant gold rims and a depiction of the sign for Big T Plaza.
This is not what the Dallas Police stands for.
Wednesday, Dallas Police Chief Eddie Garcia says the unidentified officer posted it to a page for Dallas Police Association members to gauge interest. He's been suspended while Internal Affairs investigates.
Well, listen, I have stood before you many, many times and say that when we're right, regardless of the outside noise. But when we are wrong, we will hold ourselves accountable, and we are wrong.
Tanel Atkins, who represents Southern Dallas, had stronger words.
In my opinion, he should be fired and should be gone.
The president of the Black Police Association of Greater Dallas believes the officer's rendering reveals a bias against the community he's policing.
So when we have these issues with this type of mentality, and we have a group of people who are supposed to be policed by somebody that's fair, unbiased, now you can see where the issues come in.
Mar Butler believes the rendering highlights undeserved stigmas about the community as a whole.
We have good people that are here.
The chief says to his knowledge those coins were never made. It was just the renderings that were posted to social media. Now today I also exchanged messages with the Dallas Police Association. They tell me that the rendering was, quote, in very poor taste. Blake, back to you.
Well, hey, Keith. So the police union said it was done in very poor taste. That was all, just poor taste. Now, then the police chief, Eddie Garcia, believes that these challenge coins were not made. Now, you and I both know it takes a lot to put these challenge coins together. So those challenge coins were made. That's an actual coin. It's not an example of the challenge coin. It's the actual coin. And for those citizens who do not know what a challenge coin is, a lot of police departments from around the country, we use those to give to other agencies. So it's more of some agencies, Keith, they use them as fundraising or to sell to the citizens. So that's what a challenge coin is. But make no mistake, Keith, I believe that there are more than just that one coin that they showed in that news clip.
So, challenge coins when this started in the military, and basically it has spilled over into law enforcement. And I had challenge coins made for my officers at each of the departments that I led. And we would give those to the officers for certain accomplishments, promotions, retirements. We would give them to citizens depending on, what the event was. But I can tell you that that is more than a rendering of that coin. The companies that actually make those coins, mint those coins, they charge you for those renderings. And you you don't just say, well, this is a rendering. They have, those coins are out there. This guy can say whatever he wants to regarding those coins just being that rendering or whatever. I guarantee you some of those coins are out there. And my thing is, what makes you think that it's okay to display that on social media where you know it's going to get posted over and over and over again? You know what it is? It comes down to narcissism. It comes down to a sense of entitlement, superiority, and it comes down to racism. Why would you even, I mean, there's so many things that you could put on a coin that you could actually have on a coin. If you want to commemorate the 15 years of a station, of a law enforcement, why not a flag? Why not the badge? Why not a police car? There's so many renderings that you could use, but that was very intricately done. Think about, just look at the colors. That was well thought out. And to basically anyone from the Dallas area knows that the area that he's talking about, how it's portrayed in the media and things like that, they're saying that that's a violent area. And you're talking about it's a violent area of drugs and gun violence. Do they have that over there? Absolutely. Is there a high crime over there? Absolutely. But there's crime everywhere. But you don't. But at the same time, there are amazing people who live in that area. So basically, what you're saying is everybody who lives in that area is a drug dealer or carries a gun.
And also you're labeling the shopping center and those businesses in that shopping center as being associated with crime and violence. When you've got a lot of
Virgil, being from that area, what a lot of people don't know, this guy made this coin about Big T Bazaar, but if you do your history on Big T Bazaar was one of the first mall areas in a mall area that African Americans had in that area to shop. So Big T Bazaar has not always been what people portray it as being now. You've got to know the history of it. And if you're going to use Big T Bazaar, go back and look at the history of it. Do something to capture the history of Big T Bazaar and not try to bring it down. That's the thing but nobody is dumb enough to think that that's not a racist coin.
Yeah. Well, Keith, when you look at it, okay, let's just pick the coin a piece throughout the podcast. You've got a vehicle with gold rims on it. What's that a symbol of? I mean,
well, to me and you, that's the symbol of somebody having a nice car. But to some, they symbolize that with being driven by someone who's affiliated with drug activity or violent crimes. Yeah.
And so then you've got the Doughboy. The Doughboy has teeth, gold grill teeth. So now you are associating an image of a doughboy with a black person with gold teeth.
Which we're stereotyped if we live in certain areas, if we wear certain things, or we are tagged with that stereotype that if you're black, you have gold teeth.
Yeah, exactly. And so there are just so many things that are on this coin that identifies people in South Oak Cliff, And the fact that this wasn't something that was just created overnight. And this just wasn't something that this one officer had a role in doing.
A lot of thought went into that.
A lot of thought, a lot of process, a lot of sharing, people saying, hey, man, put this in here, do this here. And then what really gets me, Keith, is the person who made the challenge coin, who they sent this to and paid to have a setup fee. Because you're not just going to get this done for free unless it's somebody who just really adores doing stuff for law enforcement for free. When they sent that drawing, that artwork to that person, you got to ask yourself, why did this person even make it? What was this person thinking about, or what was this company even thinking about to say, wait a second, this is pretty racist, and you are a police officer patrolling in that community? Come on.
Well, when it's for the money and you feel like the customer is always right, you will do that. And Virgil, I'll tell you, I think that what has to go in the mind of someone who gets that comfortable to think that they could do that, and think that in this environment that the nation has experienced over the last, we could talk about centuries, but especially over the last.
Well, let's just say the last 4 years.
Well, just say 2008.
Yeah.
Just say 2008.
Yeah.
That it's okay to do that, but.
Well, Keith, let me say it. You say since 2008, but let's just go back to the last couple of years when you've had a president who strongly encouraged that type of conduct.
Well, I think it's a sense of comfort, man. It's a sense of I can say what I want to, and it goes back to the First Amendment. People believing that they can express themselves, but people don't realize, especially law enforcement officers, people in the military, individuals that work in government, that you just can't say what you want to. You can't just take your hat off and say, well, I'm not going to be a police officer for these 15 minutes and I'm going to go on this rant regarding how I dislike people because of the way they look or where they live and things like that. And then you get time out and you put your hat back on and now everything's fine. It doesn't work that way. I'm just... it's just amazing to me. Hey, Sarah, how you doing? I see Sarah Banya.
Sarah Banner. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Sarah.
But it's just the fact that you go to the not the BPOA of Dallas, not the Black Police Officers Association of Dallas, but goes to the Dallas Police Association, and they say it was in bad taste, which means, in other words, he didn't mean it. It's not that big a deal. I don't see what everybody we get how basically what they're saying is, dang, he got caught.
Yeah. He got caught, and guess what? Yeah, we're not going to, and now everybody, which this is what happens in the employment world. Everybody has the right to due process, but at the same time, so many questions are going to come out about this officer who posted this, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some others who were involved with this here. So questions are going to come up about every arrest that he's made, every kind of contact that he has made, and this is going to be I believe a black eye on the Dallas Police Department for quite some time.
It's not going to be a black eye on any police department because you have a segment of the community that believes that this is something that goes on all the time. Virgil, you and I have talked about this before. It comes back to where people have said, I told you this type of stuff was happening. I told you have officers doing this stuff. You didn't believe us. So now you wait until it blows up. So now you want to say, well, it was in bad taste. So it's not really surprising people. It just doesn't help in the building better relationships or strengthening racial relationships between communities of color and the police department. And so that's what's going to happen. I don't think anybody's surprised. I think people expect these type of things to happen. It's just a matter of, they just don't know when it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of, when. And so, each day when things like, think about this, Virgil. We've been talking about the relationships between minority communities and police departments for years, but just think about in 2014 and 15, when everything started with Trayvon, Michael Brown, and other issues that have occurred in communities involving police officers and communities of color. And we've talked about these things, and people have said those type of behaviors, those type of thoughts, those type of hearts are already in law enforcement. This is nothing new. And just think, how many officers have to be fired? How many officers have to be, disciplined for doing this type of thing, and it continues to happen? At what point do you not think what you're saying is inappropriate? It's really about, I don't want to say 10, 15 years ago. So this isn't new. These type of challenge coins are new. About 10 or 15 years ago, there was a retired Fort Worth officer that his retirement gift was to the department or to officers was a challenge coin that says killing hood rats, and a picture of rat, and if I believe it or not, had one of the historic housing projects in Fort Worth behind it, killing hood rats proudly each day. It was something like that. I might not have it exactly. There was a coin. So these things are not, it's no different than having a challenge coin for a police officer. They have a challenge coin minted with a Confederate flag on it.
Yeah.
Why would you do that when you know that those topics are very insensitive and not received well? Just outright race. Why would you do that?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Keith, I want to get to a couple of comments in the chat room. Several of them are from Sarah Banner, and one of them is she makes a comment that folks in government should be the first to speak out. Sarah, you're absolutely right. This isn't just a Dallas Police Department problem. This is a problem that is going on in most likely many other police departments across the country. And so whether you are the police chief in any other city, and if you are concerned about this profession and want to see this profession change, you need to call out bad behaviors when they happen. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't know enough about it to talk about it. But when you can sit there and watch a 3-minute news clip of what took place, you know what has happened. So,
Virgil, think about this. This happened in one of the, I'm going to say, the top 10 largest police departments in the nation, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you think's happening in
small rural police departments? Yeah, you got it.
What do you think is happening there?
Yeah.
So I want to share something with the audience. So I had an incident in my last department, and it was a sense of racial profiling, and actually it was borderline criminal. But when I decided to discipline the officer, the union president came to my office and basically told me that I had no business getting involved in it, and I should have minded my own business. It wasn't that big a deal. Now, this was something that I still believe has a civil rights implication, a simple civil rights violation implication, no doubt in my mind. And I'm, someone trusted me and told me about it. I started looking into it and determined it did deserve a rise to the level of an internal investigation. And it was unfolded that there were some questions about how a process was handled. But for the union president to tell the police chief that he had no business getting involved. And if I wouldn't have gotten involved, I hadn't gotten involved, we wouldn't be here today. It wasn't that big a deal. These are the things that we're talking about.
Exactly.
When you have officers within a department that they have a Halloween party, and a member of the union comes dressed as a piece of watermelon, and wife dressed like a piece of chicken, and that's accepted, and nobody thinks it's a big deal. Those are the problems that you have when people make jokes about slavery and they talk about it's reparations is silly. You all need to get over this.
Yeah.
What the listeners need to know, these are the things that are continually happening inside of police departments. And people are like, well, why don't people complain? Well, I had some young officers tell me some things that were said about me, and I asked, would you be willing to put that on paper? No, I got to work here. I don't want.
Yeah.
So in 2022, we still have people who are threatened, who receive threats and who are bullied because they want to do the right thing. And I don't know why this exists in law enforcement. I don't know why the people who the communities rely on to protect them, and when we we go out every day and tell people not to be bullies. We go out every day and tell people not to threaten people. We go out every day and tell people, we talk about integrity and ethics. And there are those in law enforcement that have the lowest level of all of those things, and some just don't have any of those things. And they expect people to believe in us. Now, how can you work with Virgil? You've been in law enforcement 30 plus years, just like I have.
Yeah.
It is difficult to come back and work with somebody that has said something like the Big T Bazaar area, or made a comment about chicken and watermelon, or hey, man, I got a bunch of kids. I know you as a black woman, you got a WIC card, or hey, you got some watermelon to go with that chicken, So, these things are still happening. And what I want the listeners to know, these things are happening, and they're going to continue to happen, because there is a fear that if you come forward and report that nothing's going to be done. If line level officers report that to their supervisors, at some point, Virgil, it's going to get dismissed and get lost somewhere.
Well, and also, Keith, one of the things you just made a point, if you do come forward and speak out against this, now you're going to be labeled as the officer that nobody wants to work with. You're going to have a supervisor that's going to retaliate against you, that's going to assign you to work somewhere where you've never worked at before, or anything is possible. So, and there again, when people say, oh, I'm going to be a whistleblower, and you're going to report this, now all of a sudden you may feel that you may have to take some time off of work just to feel that you're safe from the people that you're supposed to be feeling safe with.
Well, Virgil, and the thing, and what I want to get across to the listeners is that we're not saying that every police officer who's not of color is involved. Matter of fact, there are a lot of police officers who do not look like Virgil and I that are tired of this, that do come forward. But there are those officers are still retaliated against, ostracized, left out on calls by themselves. Those things do happen. And so it takes a very, very special person, a very strong person, a person who stands on their principles to come forward and say, enough is enough.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people have to understand. But to be that comfortable. So if you can you just imagine, you're going to have to go back and and look at all his calls, the calls he's been on.
And I made that comment earlier, Keith,
that
you're going to have to go back and look at all of his arrests.
You don't have to. And I guarantee you, they're going to find because in the areas where he works, you don't have a lot of people who are going to complain. They don't know how to make a complaint. And then if they do know how to make a complaint, they have no faith in the system that something's going to happen.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It wouldn't surprise me when they go back and they look at the calls and look at the statistics,
the arrests he's made,
the demographics of the individuals he made, and they just randomly pull individuals and talk to them about his behavior when he encountered them. It wouldn't surprise me if there's going to be some things that come out that might even be borderline criminal.
Well, yeah, Keith, and I think you're on track with what I was getting ready. My comment was that any arrest that this guy has made, they're going to look at, was there any biases in maybe a DUI, maybe any kind of contact this person has had with the person of color, because now it's clear that he has a biased opinion about Black people when he made sure, or him and others made sure, that this challenge coin had a picture of a doughboy that had gold real teeth, a picture of a car that had big gold rims on it, a picture of a person who had money, all these symbols that you can say are negative toward the Black community.
Nobody's
crazy.
Yeah, nobody's crazy, man. People know, man, when you look like you and I, man, we know what he was inferring, man. We know that. And Virgil, look here, man. This is getting old, man.
Yeah, it's getting old. And one of the things, and I think this is time where, Sarah, she made a comment earlier about people need to talk about this stuff, and they need to speak up. And this is a thing. There is people, Keith, that there are people who know who this officer is on the Dallas Police Department. They already know who he is. And so that's going to cause a great division between the Black police officers, the white police officers, the Latino police officers. And so I'm going to ask you this question, because you're from that area. You were the former police chief in Lancaster. You were in Fort Worth. As a Black police officer, should you stand up and condone this here? Not just the Black Police Officers Association coming out addressing this, but as a individual officer, should you come out and use your voice to address issues like this?
I'm gonna just say this: hell yeah, you should. And if you don't, you're just as guilty as that person who drew that rendering or who put that on Facebook. Virgil, I will tell you that we have a lot of people in this profession that they will go out and throw themselves in front of a bullet. They pull people out of burning cars. They get into foot chases. They've been shot at, but they will not stand up for themselves or stand up for what's right.
Right. Yeah. That's
not it, but there are those individuals that look like you and I that don't, for whatever reason. Some chose to turn their backs and say it's not that big a deal. He better be glad he didn't say that about me. To basically remove themselves from the situation and make themselves feel better for not responding. Those are the things that are sad. I can tell you from when I got in law enforcement in 1988 in the city of Fort Worth, that was a regular discussion. Those were regular type of wordings, regular kind of renderings that were displayed in briefing rooms and talk and things like that on the radio. And when you had African-American officers that would laugh at it and basically say, man, they're not talking about me. Well, yeah,
they're talking about you. Come on, dude.
They are. So you have, it's how much are you willing to take a chance on losing? And my thing is, if you stand up for the right thing, you'll always recover. If you stand up for the wrong thing, you're going to eventually fall down with those individuals that have done it. And I see people today that I worked with back then, and it's still difficult for me to look at them because they were part of those conversations when we went on those calls in the predominantly Hispanic areas, predominantly Black areas, and you have white officers saying things. They were part of those, part of the laughter, part of the harassment. They were part of that. And so has it gotten better in law enforcement? You want me to just be honest with you? I think in the last 2 or 3 years, Virgil, it's gotten worse. It has gotten worse. And then you have those individuals in government that have the opportunity to bring in game changers, and they will do it, and then they get a little bit of friction or resistance from the community, and then they turn on the individual that they bring in. So it's very difficult, and it's not difficult, but it can be difficult to want to do the right thing and to want to bring things to light. But it's a lonely island out there, man. You're on an island by yourself because you have people that all they worry about is themselves. When somebody tells you, man, I would say something, but
yeah,
I gotta work here, or nothing's happening before. It's crazy. It's crazy, and it's very disappointing.
Yeah. Well, hey, Keith, I want to get to one of the comments that's in the chat room by Sarah. She said, in politicians exploiting the tragedies and crises. You're absolutely, right, Sarah. You got politicians who, for their own political reason, they are exploiting the things that have happened. Where you go back and you look at what happened with Uvalde, Texas, and all the other things that have happened. There's something political behind it. Keith, I want to say this before we, move forward. It really gets me that people are they remove themselves from certain things that's going on in society. And, when everything that happened with George Floyd, people from all over the United States, outside of the United States, they got out, they marched, they protested against police brutality. Very engaged with what was going on. There was a lot of things that happened that shouldn't have happened in, like Seattle and Portland, even up in Minnesota with the precinct getting burned down. But it gets me that you don't see a lot of people really engaged in topics in conversations like this. People will spend a lot of time on TikTok clicking and liking certain things that's entertaining, but things that are not entertaining, you don't find a lot of people a part of those conversations. So I'm gonna ask you this, and I'm gonna ask Sarah and those who are watching and listening, is that a part of the problem that we're seeing? Because unless it is, I've heard this. Let me say this. I've heard people say about Al Sharpton and the attorney Ben Crump. If it doesn't involve a police shooting, you don't even see those guys. If it involves a police shooting, they're going to be right there in front of the cameras. So do we not, as a society or people, really get engaged with conversations like this when these things happen?
So let me go back and talk about, people say that about Al Sharpton, and they say things like that about Ben Crump. I do know personally that those two gentlemen do get involved. Those two civil rights activists do get involved, not only during, but also when something doesn't reach the magnitude of the news. They are sitting on committees. They are talking in Washington. They are doing so. You know, I know what it looks like, and I think, you know, people probably do think that, but I know that these individuals are fighting for the rights of people, not just on TV when something happens. But I think that we've got so much going on right now in the nation. I think that people pick which ones they think is more important to them. And so until you've been affected by something, it's not important to you.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think there's so much going on. So, you know, I would like to keep the conversation going regarding police excessive force,
misconduct,
training, and conduct. Those conversations have to keep going. You can't just have those conversations when something tragically happens, like Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and others, you know, Ahmaud Arbery and things like that. You can't just have those conversations then. It's an ongoing dialogue that never dies. It doesn't say you have to be on the news every day in a newspaper, but you have to be having these meetings, and police chiefs have to have these conversations and have to push down the required training. You can't just say that your officers are involved in DEI, you know, just to say, well, because I've heard that.
It's just like checking the box.
Yeah, you can't just keep checking the box, because when you check a box, you continually have stuff like this. And I know Garcia is doing all he can. I know Renee Hall did an amazing job in Dallas, you know, but what I will tell you is, and I'm gonna just be honest with you, if this would have happened under Renee's watch, all hell would have broken loose. It would have been just horrific how they would have treated, how they would have made this story. The media is saying that this is something serious, but I can guarantee you, if Renee had been there, being an African American woman, it would have been hard on her.
Yeah,
I have no doubt in my mind they would have been very hard on her. But it's amazing how, I used to hear Renee say certain things, some of the same things that I hear Eddie saying, and nobody was receptive of it. But Eddie can say this, and everybody's, oh man, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Same thing. You've been in that situation. I've been in that situation. Your predecessor, if they are white, can say something. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. You come in and say the same thing. So you know,
that don't make any sense. They want to question your judgment, your leadership skills.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And so until we get that stuff, until we stop infighting in law enforcement, until we stop going after each other and trying to belittle each other based on whatever, until we stop doing that, we're not going to get anywhere. These are going to become more even common, more common each and every day. Because you go and you Google this, and in 21 and 22, this is nothing. This is not even scratching the surface
of what's going on.
Of what has happened. It has not.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Keith, I want to remind our listeners that tonight's topic of the podcast is the state of America policing and social media. Keith, I want to get to a comment that's in the chat room by Raisin, I believe,
Raisin Brand.
And it's a good question. The question is, why don't the psychological assessment that departments use when hiring officers pick up racist bias? If not, do you think there is an assessment that can detect racist bias? Good question.
Yeah, so the test, there's several tests that are designed out there, and there are some that will pick up indicators. I don't think you can determine if somebody is specifically a sexist or racist, but there are indicators that come up. But you have to understand too, there are individuals that can hide that. Can hide things. And so the traits can be picked up. There are indicators, but you might not be enough to pick up the fact that this is who this person is. My philosophy is if you pick up one of those hints, they don't because you've got several steps in a hiring process. So there's not one step that you can get eliminated in any of the steps. But I have seen police departments that, because police chiefs have to sign off on those psychological tests. Either you pass or you fail, or it's inconclusive. If something's inconclusive, there's something there.
There's something there.
Yeah. And so, there are some tests that can pick up some things, but not everything. And the only thing that picks up who a person really is a thorough background check or observation, thorough background check, talking to people who know this individual, going all the way back to the child, talking to co-workers, talking to neighbors, talking to schoolmates and things like that. That might not even reveal all of it, but that observation period of in the academy, it's going to come out there. It's going to come out it's going to come out at some point.
Well, and Keith, and I'll say this, and I think a lot of departments with the way staffing is now, as you know, some agencies are cutting corners. They're eliminating certain things. They may not do an in-depth background investigation where, if you remember back with you and me, you had background investigators knocking on your next door neighbor doors, talking to you, school teachers, everybody that you put down, there was some kind of contact with that person. And I think just because of everything that's going on with trying to hire police officers, all these things that could potentially show some of this is not being done. But I'll say this, I think you cannot get past, I've had so many psychological evaluations just like you come across your desk, and you may get somebody who will say they don't recommend this person. And so I've seen police officers who, hey, we know that person, they're okay. So they're advocating for that person to be hired. And that's based upon their personal relationship with that person. So again, I just think when you see indicators like that, now's not the time to waste to put a person through your academy for you to decide 6 weeks or 8 weeks later on that person is not going to make it.
Well, let me say this to Raisin. A psychological test is only as good as the person who designed the psychological test. And you have to make sure you have to do your research on those tests, because all those tests aren't the same. All of them aren't designed to find indicators. They're not.
Yeah.
But let's just go a little bit deeper than that. Who is actually doing backgrounds?
Exactly. Yeah.
The most important part of this is, what does your background team, what's the background of your background team? Did they interview for the position? Do they have a dual position? Are they doing backgrounds and criminal investigations? Are they doing 2 or 3 different jobs? Are they a field training officer, background investigator? Are they there because you needed them there for 2 or 3 months and then they go back? Who's doing your backgrounds?
Yeah.
Are they qualified? Had they gone through background training? What does their history look like? See, these are questions that as a police chief, you need to be asking, especially if you're a new police chief. That's the first thing you need to look. Your training, your narcotics, your hiring process, and your property room are areas you better look at when you first get there.
Oh, definitely.
You have no choice, but definitely who's doing your background check? How long have they been there? Are they doing the background on people? Because this is what you hear. Oh man, that's such and such's son. Man, his dad was a hell of a police officer, so he's going to be a hell of a police officer.
Exactly.
Oh, man, such and such played football at the University of Power 5. Man, he's going to be good. Oh, man, such and such was a Marine. He's automatically going to be good. Yeah. These are the things. These are the people. We're not digging into their background. We're digging into their
social life.
We're hiring them for their social skills and who they know and who they are, who they were, what they were. Yeah. We're not digging down into their now. And what else you see, Virgil? I'm sorry, this is what else you see. Oh yeah, that happened, but this guy's 23, and he just did some stuff that you and I would have probably gone to jail for. But this is what you'll hear. Man, that was 17 when he did that. He wasn't mature enough. But he's, those are the things that you hear. So I've heard all the excuses about why we should hire certain people and things like that. And that's how you get to, that's how people get there. And I know there's people those departments don't even do a psychological test.
No, don't even do a background. But let me say this, Keith. Now, when background are done, especially on minorities, they're going to be scrutinized. They're going to be, one of my former mayors said, "Dot your I's, cross your T's." To me, that's one of those old folks saying. But every single thing about a black male or a black female or somebody that's Latino, they are going to find it. They're going to make sure that they question you about it. They're going to eventually say that you're unfit, that you're unqualified, and you don't meet the standards of what they are looking for. Now, if it's a white young male whose dad was a sergeant or a lieutenant, or he just served maybe 20 or 30 years within the department, they're going to say, well, you know what? That's Bob's son right there. Man, we got to make sure Bob's son gets in there, gets in. And next thing you know, Bob's son gets in, but Bob's son got some baggage. But here you've got this young black kid who that's his golden dream. You got the same thing happening for that young Hispanic male or female that wants to become a police officer, but the doors are closed on them, but it's not closed on others.
Virgil, this is interesting because I lived that not too long ago. That's why nepotism. I did not understand Arlington's nepotism policy initially when I got there. That you couldn't work there if you had a relative that worked for the department. Couldn't understand it. Trust me, I get it. Yeah. When you have individuals who come through and because they have the last name of a person who works there, I have seen people treated differently. And this is what I've heard. Man, I'm not gonna touch him, man, because his daddy's up there. I don't want no problem. Or hey, take care of him. We know who his daddy is. Take care of him. Push him through. Yeah. Those things happen daily, and people are proud of that. Yeah, and so I do understand why nepotism policies are necessary. Being that I implemented one, and it is necessary. It does cut down on a lot of this stuff because what happens in situations with these officers that happened in Dallas is that they believe because of who they are, who their fathers are, who their mothers are, they're above the law, or who they know they're above the law. And so this is why they can do things like that. I guarantee you, he didn't think for that guy to put that on social media, Virgil, he didn't think
nothing was wrong with it. Yeah, he didn't know anything was going to happen to him.
Anything wrong with it. And, he's going to go back to my First Amendment rights. I was off duty, my personal social media page.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Keith, let me get to a couple comments. The last 5 minutes of the podcast, and it's been a great topic that we've been talking about. The state of American policing, in social media. One of the comments, from Jay Hill. We want to thank Jay for tuning in. Jay says, use of force complaints should follow that officer. Some departments will give a good recommendation just to get rid of the officer. Sarah, one of her comments is how we got to unqualified folks carrying badges, titles, and guns. Let me get to a couple other comments here. I don't want people to think we're not reading the comments. Jay Hill says the good old boy system, and then Sarah, she says, not qualified but privileged. And we got another faithful follower to the podcast show. Mr. Tony Hollis out of Arkansas says, although background checks are good and something that should be mandatory, however, we must realize it's the police culture who believe that they're about the law and don't give a hoot about lawsuits because it's the police municipal league. I think there are some more to his comments about the police municipal league and taxpayers that will be the folks who will pay these lawsuits. That's why I continue to say, until police are mandated to purchase their own liability insurance, nothing will change in the conduct behavior of cops.
You know what, Virgil, on the purchasing insurance, I hear what Tony's saying. I think it should be when those officers that conduct themselves in a way that violate policy and state law, they should be on their own. You have individuals where I believe the officers do need to be covered, but there are some of those that do frivolous things. They should be out there on their own. They should not have blanket coverage. And I think when you start doing that, I think that you would see some of the behavior change. And I think Sarah had the question about how do we get unqualified folks carrying badges and titles and guns? Because for a long time, Sarah, there were no really minimum requirements to be a police officer. I mean, a certain age, and they would say no certain convictions and things like that. But it was basically, we need numbers and we'll turn our backs on some things. And so then it grows. You started getting standards, but a lot of the people who didn't have to follow those standards have already become involved in law enforcement, have already established the culture. So it comes down to the fact of we need bodies, and meaning bodies sometimes means we'll sacrifice quality. And that's not the right thing to do. That is completely wrong, but that's what has happened.
Yeah. Hey, Keith, I got to make this comment. I've got to share with you a person that's in the chat room. Her name is Sonia Thompson. She replies to Tony Hollis' comment. She says the truth. But Keith, Sonia Thompson is listening to us out of San Diego, California, and she is from Hobbs, New Mexico. So she knows all about the great Hobbs Eagles.
Son,
that kind of stumped you, right?
Yeah, man. But you know what? I'm like, hey, does she live there now?
No, she doesn't live there now.
Just like so why she moved out of Hobbs.
But a lot of us have moved away from Hobbs, but Hobbs is home, and so yeah. So I had to give a shout out to Sonia for listening to us way out there in California. So yeah. Also, we want to recognize supporters of Free Marvin Hayes is listening to us on the podcast show. So Keith, we got a few minutes. Go right ahead.
Hey man, Jay Hill is a rock star, man.
He is. Jay, you
Jay's
are
a rock star, man. Jay's a rock star. Sarah's a rock star. Tony's a rock star. Yeah, but you know who the biggest rock star of them all tonight?
Who's that?
Raisin Brand.
Oh yeah, man, that was a great question. Definitely.
That was a great question, man. That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a cold name, man. That's a cold-blooded
Raisin
name.
Brain.
Raisin Brain.
That is.
That's
That
cold.
is.
Name.
That is, man.
That
It
is.
is. Hey, Keith, man. Last few seconds of the show, man. It's been another great podcast. I want to tell everybody to make sure you tune in and join us next Thursday for another episode of You and the Law Podcast Show.
You guys have a good week. Love you, brother.
Love you too, bro.